President Donald Trump's ecstatic pronouncement that the sounds of demolition on the White House East Wing were music to my ears captured the dramatic collision between his personal entrepreneurial vision and the sanctity of the historic People's House. The partial demolition of the East Wing, the traditional location of the First Lady's office and the main visitor entrance, marks the beginning of construction for a massive, privately funded, $250 million grand ballroom. This project has ignited immediate and intense controversy, raising questions of historical preservation, executive authority, and political ethics. Summary and analysis. The issue centers on the destruction of a portion of the 1942-era East Wing to make room for a new 90,000 square foot structure intended to host large state dinners and grand functions, designed to accommodate up to 999 guests. The White House insists the entire project, estimated to cost $250 million, will be paid for by private donors and the president himself, at zero cost to the American taxpayer. Critics, however, immediately pointed to the stark visual of a historic White House structure being torn down, viewing it as a symbolic overreach and an act of desecration that prioritizes the president's personal taste for opulence over historical continuity. Furthermore, the demolition proceeded without public disclosure of the full plans or apparent approval from the National Capital Planning Commission, NCPC, the federal agency that typically reviews major construction on government property. White House officials have contended that the NCPC's jurisdiction only applies to vertical build and not initial demolition or site preparation, allowing them to move forward rapidly. Reasons and consequences. Reasons for the project. Perceived need for space. The administration argues that the White House's current largest event space, the East Room, capacity around 200, is inadequate for large state dinners and gatherings. Presidents have historically had to resort to setting up temporary, unsightly tents on the South Lawn, which Trump views as undignified. Personal preference and legacy. As a former real estate developer, the president has long favored large, luxurious venues, a preference visible in the gold-accented, bulletproof glass-walled design renderings which resemble his private Mar-a-Lago club's ballroom. The project is seen as a way for Trump to leave a massive, indelible architectural legacy on the White House grounds. Zero-cost funding. By securing private funding from corporations and wealthy individuals, the administration can bypass the traditional, often protracted, congressional appropriations process. Consequences. Erosion of historical integrity. Preservationists argue that any demolition of a major White House wing is an affront to its status as a national landmark, regardless of the wing's numerous past renovations. This action sets a potentially damaging precedent for future unilateral presidential changes. Ethical and transparency concerns. The private funding model, while insulating the project from taxpayer costs, raises serious ethical concerns regarding the influence of major corporate donors, some of whom have been disclosed, such as Google's YouTube, who are essentially financing a massive physical modification to the executive mansion. The lack of complete donor transparency fuels accusations of potential conflicts of interest. Abuse of executive authority. The decision to bypass traditional federal planning reviews, coupled with the installation of a White House aide as the head of the NCPC, suggests a willingness to circumvent established democratic procedures and oversight to achieve a construction goal quickly. Political symbolism. The construction, particularly amid a government shutdown at the time of the demolition, is cast by critics as a symbol of misplaced priorities, focusing on private luxury while essential government functions stall. Prediction and solutions prediction. The construction is likely to continue at pace, driven by the president's personal commitment and the aggressive timeline to complete the ambitious project before the end of his term in January 2029. Legal challenges from preservation groups may delay or alter aspects of the rebuilding phase, especially the exterior appearance. But the demolition of the East Wing structure already completed is irreversible. The ballroom will likely be completed, but it will remain a potent political symbol, a monument to a presidency defined by disruption and grand personal statements. Its final design, potentially named after the president, will ensure it remains a point of controversy for future administrations. Solutions: mitigation and future prevention, immediate legal review and pause. Preservation and good governance groups can continue to pursue legal avenues to force the administration to submit the full vertical construction plans to the NCPC for the legally required public and professional review. While demolition is done, the vertical construction remains subject to review. Donor disclosure mandate. Congress could legislate stricter, mandatory, and immediate public disclosure of all private donors contributing to White House structural projects to address ethical conflicts of interest and transparency issues. Strengthened architectural oversight. After the current administration, Congress could enact stronger statutory safeguards, potentially elevating the approval power of commissions like the NCPC or the Commission of Fine Arts over White House changes, removing the current ambiguous loophole that allows demolition to proceed without review. Public education and dialogue. The demolition has prompted a necessary public dialogue about the balance between the president's needs and the White House's role as a national, historical, and architectural monument belonging to all Americans. This discussion should inform future protocols for White House modifications.